goal we have. The goals for tonight. We want to learn Lambda. Not only we want to learn Lambda, so Lambda functions, very popular in industry. So if you do not know it, the people may laugh a little bit because those who know Python, you may like it because Python people really like this thing because it is Python, Java, C Sharp, just name it, any language, C++, any language you can write this function. So you don't need to know any special programming language. You can write in JavaScript, you can write in Node.js, we'll talk about it. It is also known as this is a exam question. It's sometimes they refer as a FAS. FAS stands for functional function as a service. Very popular thing. Those who have studied what you call Azure, you might have heard about called function. So Azure represent as a function. It's the same thing. But Lambda, it looks pretty interesting, and we'll talk about it. So first we'll create a functions. So we can make you program a little bit. So we'll create a function, right? But when we create a function, we need to test it. So we'll test the function, and we'll debug also. So we'll debug the functions, how it works. Now, if you're going for architecture exam or architect interview, I can give you guarantee people will some shape or form at least ask few questions about Lambda. And there are some pros and cons are there, but more pros versus cons. So you will be asked in exams and interview about a function. I also, been there a couple of times in interview sessions where either I took interview or I gave interview. And when it comes Lambda, I nail it down because I use it for my various projects. So when I explain in such a detail, the person who take interview after that, nothing happens, just like an offer letter comes in picture because the person will be very impressed, right? Because majority people don't know that detail. But when you have used it, you can go in more detail. And I will tell you a couple of projects we have done, our students have done. Most of my project work as our student because I do concept. And one of the students, many of you might know, Huda and Lama, they really work very hard for Lambda. Last time when I taught, I think maybe 4 or 5 months back, and that's what they did. And that's what they got a job. So they also got a job just because of not only knowing AWS, but knowing more detail about Lambda. They walked through step by step. Even Lama told when she got a job in Blue Cross Blue Shield, she walked through the entire process, how they did it. So homework matters, project matters. So that's why I'm super excited with this topic. Now, after that, we cover Lambda. There will be another topic we need to cover is web service. Now, web service is a buzzword in the market for almost last, I would say, 12 plus years. It's a buzzword. I would not find anyone in the industry right now who does not know web service. So we need to know how to create web service. Now, this is where dilemma starts for the developer versus QA. Because developer normally develop the web service and QA normally test the web service. So Jagruti sees the QA students and they say, I want to test the web service. So you will learn something about that. But then your cloud architecture, so cloud architect should know how web service works and how you design the web service. And when you design the web service, you need to know how to test the web service. So for that, in your agenda, if you read carefully, I ask you to download Postman. So if you're not downloaded, you may want to download it. It may take maybe a few minutes to download Postman. In your agenda, I give you a video where I compare two services, REST versus SOAP, because you will expect some questions in your interview. Now, trust me, basic questions almost anybody can answer. But if you go in detail, very limited people will be able to answer these questions. Trust me, I have used web services for, I would say, since 2006-7, I've been using. So not only I use web service, but I certify myself as a web service developer. So you need to know that in and out. And now the concept is web service has two types of concept, web service and now versus microservice. So you will expect a lot of questions in interview about this thing. And good news about it, this works with Lambda. So Lambda and it works together. So if you know Lambda, you can also know the web services. And along with that, the journey we will combine with the API Gateway. And this is the ultimate end-to-end setup we'll do. So we have only 2 topics, but these topics are very profound. To be honest with you, when I do lab or I explain the concept, may not be enough unless you do yourself, right? So part of homework, I'm going to give you similar exercise. Again, it won't be like longer as VPC, but if you follow the videos and if you follow the exercise, you may be able to do it. And when you do it, you will appreciate it. 60 to 70% Lambda you will learn in 2-3 hours. But if you want to learn more than that, then you need to do a little bit projects on that. So 70% I can give you guarantee you will learn in next couple of hours. But rest of the like extra miles with 30% will take maybe longer time. So far so good. So 2 topics. Lambda, you may expect in your architect exam guaranteed 3 to 5 questions. Web service maybe 2-3 questions, and API gateway maybe 1 question. Most companies use API gateway, most companies use web service, and most companies use Lambda. As I mentioned before, Azure calls the same concept as a functions. So if you are using Azure, then they call function. Concept is very similar. So it's a transferable skill. Whatever you do in Lambda, you can do in Azure function, right? So now let me jump into my slides and I will give you some idea about this concept, and then we'll do step-by-step lab. So before break, most likely we'll be able to do Lambda, and after break, we'll be able to do web services. Okay, maybe I will start before the break. I will start a little bit about API gateway, but we'll cover a web service also. Stop me anytime, ask questions, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure you're comfortable, because getting job is quite easy with the concept, right? And then doing the lab would require a little bit hands-on experience. Good news, these are easy topics. If you've done VPC, this is comparatively, I would say, lot simpler. VPC is considerable, has a lot of moving parts. You need to know a lot more thing about VPC. While this is kind of easy, if you know a little bit programming, it's a plus point. A little bit programming is a plus point. So if you know Java, if you know Linux, if you know Python, C#, anything, even a little bit programming is a plus point. In a real life, you don't have to do programming, but you have to do concept. And in order to do concept, having a little bit programming knowledge is a plus point. If you do not know programming, don't worry about it. You will still be able to do the lab. Sounds good? So let's dive in with the slides first. So first thing, I have slides. First few slides I'll ignore, and I'll come back that slide later. So here, the first thing is the API. There are a couple of words that will be confusing to you. API, web service, or microservice. These words are sometimes very often used in an industry. Now, API stands for Application Programming Interface. So let's talk about a little bit. Again, I'm trying to draw the picture so your mind can get it. Otherwise, I can do straightforward lab and you will be able to do it, but you won't appreciate it. So what happened in long time back, please understand, this concept is very profound. As I mentioned before, last 12 years has been in demand. So if I ask you, I'll take you to the 2004, 2005. So 2004 and 2005, what happened? Like the .com, many of you might know 2000 was .com bubble burst. So in 2000, everyone was doing .com. .com in the sense of they come up with their websites and they start business. And it was growing. But in 2004, they came up with a concept which is called every business has processes. We call BPM, Business Process Management. So every business has a process, and processes are very simple, series of steps. Series of steps. Please relax and enjoy. Trust me, you will lifetime remember this concept if you pay attention, because this kind of concept, I can tell you, you won't find anywhere in material, because this started like this thing. Business process. So every company starts with business process. So example, Chrysler. So Chrysler wants to sell the car. Chrysler wants to provide like build and material. Build and material means you can configure your own car. Or Chrysler want to give some incentives. Chrysler want to go give some kind of credit card. So they think about their process, credit card registration, car dealer, warranty. So they thought about the process, and there are so many processes they had. So if I repeat that, they found like there are hundreds of processes company follow. And then they started drawing this thing using BPM, which is called business process model. And then think about from company perspective, this is what company does, and this is what customer receives. So they realize there are certain things are common. that some pieces were reusable. They were used among the multiple processes. So they found there are certain steps they are reusable among the processes. So example, when I'm working for Chrysler, they use certain things. And when I work for Dodge, when I work for Jeep, when I work for Mopar, when I work for Chrysler Financial, when I work for Daimler Chrysler Financial, there are 52 websites, 52 processes. So there are so many commonalities there. And they used to repeat that thing 50 times. Can you believe that? Login 50 times, right? Security check, address validation 50 times. So when they started doing this visual picture, which is called business processes, they found, oh, we are using login. Oh, we are using login here. Oh, we are doing address validator. Oh, we are doing credit card check here. We do everything. So then they visualize and they say, can we make this reusable? It means we create once and then use multiple times. Create once and use multiple times. Now that gave them opportunity as a create another concept of application. And then these applications kind of this is also part of applications. So they started interfacing. Now this interfacing was very orthodox form. Orthodox form means no one knows how to do. So then what happened? Company started, please pay attention. This is something very important. Okay. Now company started doing like, there is a one machine who has one process and another machine has another process. Okay. Now this machine and this machine may not talk, but they are in the same network. So now they started coming to communications. Because if this machine focus on this small portion, and if this machine focus on this portion, and then they try to communicate. So there are few technology evolved at that time. One of the technology called RPC, remote procedure call. It means this machine can call this program, remote procedure call, RPC. Remote procedure call means you can call RPC. Many of vendor, so example, there is a vendor who wants to call. We used to give a network access, so they can also call remote. But when we give network access, it's a security violation. Makes sense or not? Because they can hijack entire Chrysler network. Do you guys agree or not? Because that time concept was very orthodox form, like rudimentary. So we used to create one server and say, come and get calling. So RPC is nothing but calling program, but program is running on another machine. Make sense or not? So there are some restrictions about that. Restriction number one, you have to be in the same network. Now Chrysler can be on the same network, no problem. But then there are dealers or there are some other vendors who are not on the same network. So what Chrysler has to do, Chrysler has to give them network access. So think about that. You are having a one Almera where you put all your diamonds and money or cards. You have a key, but you have to give your key to your neighbor. Would that be safer? No. So then people realize this is not safer. So now they say, wait a minute, stop. So when they stop, there is a big problem happen. Now the program, the logic which you have is not shareable. It can be reusable in the company, but it's not shareable with the clients, vendors, suppliers. So again, there is a problem. So during this time, there was a company evolved, the company name called Web Method. Many of you might have heard about Web Methods. That company came up with the initial concept about web method. Method means program. A method means function. Procedure, in case if you are on programming, method means like a procedure or function. A web method means you can call program through web. It means rather than calling through network, which is RPC, you are now calling through HTTP. It means now anybody can call from anywhere. Suddenly doors open. Make sense? So now many company, what they did, let me just explain here. So many company, those were using mainframe. Mainframe is very old technology. So now they started using interface here. Interface means like a pluggable program. They created a web method and now they're exposing web interface to entire world. Even they're using mainframe internally. Mainframe is a very rudimentary way to run the show. So think about Sears. They do currently, when you go to Sears.com, or you go to POS system, point of service in a store, whenever you do order, it is using the method, web method type of thing, and then they are using COBOL program. It means this one is interfacing mainframe and this type of program. And this was instantly successful. So 2004 to 2007, if you know web methods, you are kind of instantly high. 2007, Microsoft, and at the same time, like Java, microservices, and then Oracle, and everyone said, wait a minute, this company is booming. Let's do something standardization. And then they came up with the internet operability. So internet operability, the concept came up. It means now, rather than using web method, let's come up with a standard thing called web service. So service means I'm serving, and web means I'm serving through web. Now, benefit about that same thing what web method was doing, but rather than just web method as a company, they made it standard. So now web service become a standardization around 2005, 2006. And now most company, it's instantly open the door now. The legacy system, like it can be written in COBOL or it written in a very old language like a Fortran or Pascal or C++, name it, CGI those people now become instantly successful because they internally, whatever you are using, you can use whatever you want. And you do create interface. Interface means people can talk to you via this thing. So example, I have remote, and there is a projector. Am I talking to projector? Can I talk to projector? Say yes or no. Simple thing, no. But if I have this, I can talk. Do you agree or not? So this is the web service. Using this, now you enable company to talk to anyone in the world. So now suddenly what company were good at. So example, old company, most of the company have written their logic in a COBOL, Fortran, Pascal, C, CGI like that. They have new life now because they don't have to rewrite anything. I can give you guarantee if you go to Blue Cross Blue Shield, if you go to Bank of America, if you go to JP Morgan, if you go to Chrysler, if you go to Allstate, I give you guarantee they are still using 40, 50 years old technology. But they have created a wrapper on top of that, which we call web service. And through web service, you send request and receive response. And behind the scene, old legacy program is still serving because logic is still there. Logic is still there. And logic is written in a proprietary form and you don't want to rewrite. So web service enable us proprietary logic from our local machine without network. You are exposing through HTTP. Make sense? And when you expose through HTTP, it's not a firewall issue. It's not a security issue. So suddenly most companies started liking it. So far, so good. So web service means expanding opportunity. You can have your own machine. You write a program and you can expose a service where people can search it by it. So think about Google. What Google does, Google has a search. That is nothing but Google write their search the way they want, but they have exposed this service called, we call POI service. POI means point of interest. POI service means point of interest. Google has exposed point of service. Now you're using Google Map. That is nothing but Google Map service. So Google has created a service they internally use and they're selling and then sharing also. Selling means metering. How many times you're going to use? Do you want to support? Do you want some extra features? I'll charge you every time you call, So suddenly web service become a metering. It's like a utility meter. Just like you're drinking water, right? You're taking water from the pipeline. You're paying bill for that. So web service becoming a machine where people start making money. So think about when you go to parking lot and in parking lot you park your car and then you enter the coins and you expect, wow, have you ever thought about how the parking meter works? Does anyone have any clue how parking meter works? Just give me a clue how it works. Time. Sorry? Time. No. That's not, that it is not. How it works, parking meter. Come on.
Input and output.
The coins or the
Walk me through. You are in interview. Walk me through how parking meter works.
So you insert money and
When the money is
No. That's the user definition. You are architect. I need some technical language. Don't tell me like that. Don't tell me like that. How car works, right? Don't say like that. You have to walk me through with the technology. You are architect, not a user. So think about you are in a parking lot. You park your car with the meter. So this is the meter, right? Your car somehow you park your car here. Let's say this is your car. You park, and this is the meter. Now tell me how it works. what happens?
Program, you set it up the way you want it.
Sorry?
That's a program. Then you put a clock in it and you manage the money you want. So they say 30 minutes for.
Still is the user language. Still is the user language. So let me walk you through so you'll appreciate. Trust me, every day you will be using hundreds of web services every day. And I can give you guarantee in next years or two, everyone will be using, not you, everyone. There is no way you will be, there is no way if you're using internet, you cannot say, I don't know the web service. If you're using Netflix, you're using web service. If you're using Google, you're using web service. If you're doing Facebook, every day you are using, if you're using iPhone or if you're using iWatch or anything you're using web service. So the way it works is, there's a concept called IoT. What is IoT stands for? Internet of Things. So do you think parking machine is the internet enabled? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Absolutely yes, right? So what happened? It is the Internet of Things. So it's a thing. Do you agree? Thing means device. And the way they decide the things is every device in the world has global identifier, which we call GUID, asset ID. You can say asset ID. So through that, they know where you park. Just like in your car has a VIN number. Do you agree or not? Same thing, every device in the world has GUID, a specific asset ID, equipment ID, asset ID, whatever you call it. Now, here, a tiny Linux running. Now, Linux program is internally using a Python service, which is called Flask. So Flask is the web service engine. It's a web service engine. So it's kind of web service you can do client also, web service client. And that program, what happened when you enter the coin here, let me just drop it. So you drop the 2 coin here. So that based on the coin weight, right, it will measure that, okay, how many coin you enter, then it will create a loop that now you are allowed to do 1 hour or 2 hours. So far, so good. Now these web service will make a cloud call and it will inform that this car is parked on this machine and I got this much coin, so they will send a request to the web service. That is also running in cloud. So there is a program running in cloud, which is we call Matra or Hero, whatever you call application on your cell phone you install, right? They have a web service. So that web service, this is a web service. It is also running in Python or it is running in Java. It is running in cloud. Okay, it doesn't matter which language they're using. It is running. Now in request, you are sending asset ID, you're sending date, you're sending time, you're sending the period, you're sending slot in case if you have, and other details you're sending. So when you send it, this web service will now, the web service will log it, this information in their database. So let me use here in database. So they add that information in their database, right? Now, once you do that, you have mobile applications, right? So you will have your mobile. So now you are mobile, and suddenly, as soon as they update, they use Lambda. They use Lambda here. So what Lambda does? So what they do, Lambda, they trigger Lambda. So what happened? As soon as you insert that, Lambda triggers. So now Lambda triggers, so Lambda will notify to your cell phone that this information is there. So anytime, let's say you are close to coming to the last 15 minutes, it will be again web service say, oh, last 10 minutes kept. So database will call Lambda will trigger. So to be honest with you, if you are using any smart device, you are using web service every day, and you're also using Lambda almost every day. Now, if you understand this concept, your smart camera, anytime door camera, it works exactly the same thing. Whenever somebody says smart, you are talking inside, you just have to listen Linux. Speak with me, Linux. And it is reading your data because Linux is a tiny operating system. It works in 100 kilobytes. Tiny, it doesn't need too much memory. So it write a simple code. It doesn't use Java because Java is pretty memory guzzler. You need a lot of memory. But Linux works with tiny camera, security camera, door camera. In your house, you have, let's say, Nest, or if you have any sensor, it's a Linux, and the program which is running is a Python program which is reading your data to sensor data, and then it is submitting. When you submit, it does need an internet, and through internet it is sending to the web service, and what web service needs certain type of data. So when you send this data, the format you are using, there are two type of format you are using. One is a REST format, which is nothing but JSON, and the second is the XML format. XML format, I'll walk you through quickly. So XML format is very old, which we call extensible markup language. Extensible markup language, which is old fashioned. JSON is the new fashion. So if you are using mobile device, if you are using browser, most likely you're using JSON. If you ask me today, majority companies are using JSON. Now, web service which you write here, technically speaking, on top of that, there's a layer on the top of that here. There's a layer. We don't want directly expose the web service, because when you are putting when you're adding your car in a meter and all, we can also do authentication. Are you right user, your password, other thing. So here we call API gateway. So this is the where you're adding gateway. So when I say API gateway, what does it mean? Gateway means it's a door, right? It's just door. API means application programming interface. So do you agree? This is the program which is running here. Here there is a program running here, and this program is now talking to this program. So you need an interface, and the interface are exposed in a very standard form. Let me explain. Standard form, what does it mean? So if you draw a line here, if you draw a line, and if you are using Java here, or you are using C# here, or if you are using Python here, doesn't matter what language you hear, and doesn't matter what language you use here. It allows you decoupling. Speak with me a little fast. Decoupling, and this concept, the reason, because you are using a standard format of the decoupling. So when you are sending request and when you are receiving response, you are not actually using program, you are sending data. You're sending data, and you're receiving data, and the data which you are sending is, first of all, language independent. Language independent means doesn't matter you are sending in Java and you're receiving in Python, you're sending in Node.js, receiving in Java. They're language independent. Also, they're platform independent. So you can have Windows program sending and Linux program receiving, or Linux program sending and Windows program is receiving. It can be Azure or it can be AWS, doesn't matter. So language independent, platform independent, and country independent. There is no dependency. That's why this is called internet operability. Internet operability means you can now use this concept anywhere. So if you are using, let's say, what you call a walking device, or maybe you are using wearable device, it exactly works the same way. Now, many times what happens, wearable device does not have a smart thing. So what they call edge device. So this is called edge device. Edge in the sense that they remain closer to the customer. So that's why we call edge device, EDGE. Edge device, they remain with the customer, and if they are not smart, they will use your phone as a smartness. Please understand. So if they're not smart, they will partner, which is called pairing. They partner with your phone, and your phone has that application, which is nothing but client, and it does exactly the same thing. So if you are using, let's say, Alexa, right? Alexa device itself is not smart. So what happened? They connect with your phone, right? And then you use it. Think about Apple Watch. They may not have enough capacity to run the program, so they use your smartphone, and then your device is continuously talking to your phone, and your phone has enough operating system and program to send and receive data. Make sense? So if you remove internet, nothing will happen. Make sense? So whenever you are using wearable device, whenever you are using IoT, you are using API gateway, you are using Lambda. Lambda is more about triggering. You trigger the functions, and you're using web service. Any questions so far? Now, would you be able to explain in interview if somebody asks how the parking meter works? Huh? Would you say the coin insert and all, or would you say that there is a client program running? That client program receives customer data, because each ID has, everything has a unique ID. I worked in this industry almost 12.5 years. That industry is such a booming industry. The industry concept is called APM. This industry called APM. Many people don't even know this industry exists. These are $3 trillion industry. $3 trillion industry. If you have a little bit experience, people will give hundreds of thousands. Why? Because this is not people learn in college. This is only you can learn through experience, right? You have to work in this industry. It's called domain, just like a banking domain, e-commerce domain. This is a domain. This domain is booming. APM. APM stands for Asset Performance Monitoring. So this is called asset. This is called low value asset because it's parking meter. But this asset can be jet engine. Do you guys agree or not? This jet engine, what is jet engine? When they fly, what happened? Exact same thing happened. Jet engine has thousands of sensors. Make sense or no? So thousands of sensors get the data, and there is a black box, which we call black box in a cockpit, right? That device collect the data, and it doesn't have internet. So it keeps the data. As soon as it lands, it expose the data to the web service, and then suddenly the respective carrier, whoever it, they analyze the data and say everything good. So until it is take off, data is received, because till that time internet is available. Now good news, they are using satellite internet, so every minute we can get data. But just to give you idea, the flight start to flight land, in one flight it generates 1 terabytes of data, and we cannot process that data that fast. Do you guys agree or not? So that's why we have a latency of 15 minutes. And that is the reason flight land and flight takeoff, you might have seen there is a 15 to 30 minutes delay. These delays are purposefully to make sure, is there any problem happen in the data? If yes, we can take the action, because we are not able to process instantly 1 terabyte of data. Make sense? It works exactly same thing. Jet engine, think about nuclear plant, think about submarine, think about windmill, think about any moving parts. They have sensor. There is a program collect the data, they push data to cloud. The question is, why cloud? Why can't they push everything in their machine? Why cloud? First is easy. Second is company may have offices all over the world. So they need a central access, a dashboard. So think about windmill. In case if you have seen, like if you go to Urbana-Champaign, there are hundreds of windmills are there, right? How many windmills you're going to count, right? If I'm a company and I have windmills like in Canada, like in Chicago, in different parts, I would like to have a holistic view. Yes or no? The only way I can have a holistic view through cloud. If I do in a company specific, then I will need a branch by branch. I need to replicate that. But if I do central view, I can have a different country also, and I can still get the view. Think about Uber, right? How Uber knows where you are, how the driver knows where you are. It works exactly the same thing. Now think about, you are having a cell phone, yes or no? So your cell phone has Uber application, say yes or no. So Uber application is the client. It reads your latitude, longitude, the location, your first name, last name, account, and it sends to Uber. So Uber is the cloud. Uber get the data. Uber is going to send the data to the database, and it will trigger Lambda function. And then it will notify all the driver close to the geographic, because you have given latitude, longitude. So Uber database know how many people are driving in that. And so it make a 5 miles radius and send. If person is not available, it make a 10 mile radius and send. But that is happened through Lambda only. Now you say, but why Lambda? Because I will tell you why. Because Lambda is such a beautiful thing. Lambda was introduced in 2017 by AWS. And from that day to till today, Amazon becomes super duper popular. Because Lambda made a big difference in the IoT world. And I'll tell you why. Make sense or no? Uber works, think about Netflix, everything which you do. If you're smart TV, you're using exact same thing. Smart TV become your asset. And that does exactly thing. If you are using like anything Uber applications or any like a Grubhub or any application, it does exactly the same. Now the question is, when you are sleeping, your phone is still sending data. Do you guys agree or not? Because those programs are so smart, they continuously send the data. You have to completely turn off your phone in order to avoid the privacy. Otherwise, your data will be leaked every second. Any questions? So far, so good. Now, there are few technology which you might have known or not understood. We'll cover that in a few minutes. JSON and XML. Now, Lambda. Let's talk about for a few seconds. So Lambda, let me draw another picture so it will give you clarity. Let me open here. Oops. Oops. So I'm opening again. So the Lambda, the beautiful part about Lambda is a program. So whenever I say Lambda, it's a simple program. In easy language, it is a program which we call function. So that's why it's called fast. Function. Function means some logic. So example, if I program add and I'm expecting X and Y. So let's say if I call, so this is one is the program, and this program return X plus Y. Make sense? So now if I'm a device and if I say, hey, I want to call add, it's a little bit difficult. So we add API gateway. And API gateway is the web service. So what happened is here I'm going to pass in a JSON form X is 2 and Y is 3. Now it will receive it and then it will automatically trigger this function. It will pass X is 2, Y is 3. This guy will get a 5. Then this will return 5 to you. So this is going to happen through JSON. So I'm going to give you a little bit crash course about JSON. Then I'm not going to talk about XML tonight because we are not going to use it, but it is JSON. API gateway is nothing but it is allowing you a web interface. Now program itself, you can write in any language of your choice. And this program is going to executed by AWS managed service. AWS managed service. So remember one thing, there are two types of service. One is customer managed service and one is AWS managed service. So AWS managed service means whenever you want, AWS will run for you. How it runs, where it runs, you don't have to worry about it. So think about it. I'm going for home, like around 10 o'clock, I'll go home. Now somebody call at 11 o'clock. People do call, by the way. People call 11 o'clock and say, do we have class tomorrow? 11 o'clock. Wow, I like that. 11 o'clock, you're interested. Do we have class tomorrow? Very good. 11 o'clock, but I may not be able to answer. But somehow, if I wanted to answer, I can plug it through Lambda. So what happened? If anybody call, then it will automatically go to AWS. AWS will trigger Lambda. Lambda will answer that. And AWS will only charge me for 10 or 5 seconds. And that's it. I don't have to hire anything. I don't need to have a machine. I don't have to have anything. I just need to say, AWS, this is the program. If somebody call, execute it. So AWS say, I will charge you per second. Listen carefully. I will charge you per second if they call. If they don't call, no charge at all. Do I need a machine? No. AWS will manage it. So AWS will do everything for you. The only thing you need to do is give a program. Now you say, but can I not do my machine? Let's think this scenario. I go home at 10 o'clock. If people call, maybe once in a while. Machine is running, yes or no? If machine is running, AWS is going to charge me, yes or no? So every day I go 10 o'clock home, and since 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock to 7 o'clock, no one is calling, but AWS will charge me, yes or no? So technically speaking, it would be a lot more cost effective if I give my program to AWS and I do not provision machine. Why? Because if there are 4 calls I receive, AWS is going to charge me maybe 15 seconds per call, maybe around 1 minute. How much cost will be? Maybe a 1 cent compared to the machine which I have. If I keep machine, the cost total will be $10 to $20 minimum. 1 cent or 10 cent versus $20. Do you see the difference? And if you multiply by hundreds of machines, we are talking about millions of dollars saving. So think about Netflix. When you are watching movie, think about for a second. When you are watching movie, every time you watch movie, you're updating your profile. So I watch action movie. So it adds action movie. Then I watch maybe another comedy movie. So it adds that. So every time they add it, they have program running behind the scene to map you versus others. So like example, I watched Die Hard. So they have program running to see how many people have watched Die Hard. And they instantly get recommendation, yes or no? Yeah. How they're getting? Lambda. Because not every time you are going to watch movie. Whenever you watch, that time you want recommendation, yes or no? So sometimes Netflix does pre-calculation and sometimes they on demand calculation happen. So you get constantly update. But the good news about it, Lambda only charge for execution time, not provision, not any sleep time. Means execution means if your program runs in 2 seconds, they're only going to charge 2 seconds. So it's a lot cheaper. So Netflix overall bill will be $100. Make sense? How many people are going to like register? And if they register, how many people need certain thing? If they need certain thing, rather than provisioning millions of machines, what are you going to say? AWS, even my customer calls me, do it. So technically speaking, 10 or 15-second call will be there. Netflix will be saving a lot of money by using Lambda. And Lambda is infinite resource. AWS gives you infinite resource. So if one customer or 1 million customer, listen carefully, one customer or 1 million customer, you don't have to set up auto scale, you don't have to do VPC, you don't have to do provisioning, you don't have to do anything, all will be done by AWS. Make sense? So all headache of provisioning, configuring, setup and all you're giving to AWS, and you're just giving one program. And your program line will be 10 lines or 15 lines, and that program will be executed by AWS. Make sense? So Lambda is triggered by AWS based on the request, and request will come most likely from API Gateway, because API Gateway is the only way people will connect to the Lambda from outside world. So if outside world want to connect to the Lambda, then they go through API Gateway. They won't know is it Lambda is for serving or other program is serving, because it's a black box. And security increase because it's a serverless. It is a serverless. So what is serverless means? You don't have to own machine. You don't need to have machine at all. The machine is provisioned by AWS. So you are just doing program. So cost is significantly lower. So one of the reason in your architecture exam, people will ask you, why would you do this thing? So if your cost is concerned, Lambda would be the better option. If performance is a concern, Lambda would be better option, because you can have 10 million machine instantly for you. Why? Because that's what AWS gives you, right? And it's a peace of mind which called SLA, service level agreement. Everything AWS will give you guarantee. One person calls or 10,000 people call. AWS will give you guarantee, uniform SLA, service level agreement, and headache is nothing. So think about nowadays, any college fresher who come out from college, they normally know either Python or they know R or they know Node.js, normally college fresher. That college fresher doesn't need to know anything. You just need to write a small function. And they have studied that in high school level. Writing function will take maybe a day or two for college fresher. So all the experts in the world do not require. So any even kid in the market can do this. And that is the reason majority of you will get a job, because you don't need years of experience. You will writing 10 lines of code, and majority code are sample code. Wherever you need expertise, you may be consulting one expert in your group, but beginner can work here. And that makes it so simple for any web developer, any big company. The old-fashioned writing COBOL program requires 10 years of experience. Writing Java program requires 15, 20 years of experience, because you need to know a lot of things. Here, I can give you guarantee, without any prior experience, you will be able to write a Lambda, you will be able to test, and you will be able to expose to the world in less than 1 hour. Make sense? So simple, faster, better, cost-effective, and most secure. Why? Because you're talking to HTTP. You don't have to connect to the machine. It's only HTTP access. No one can hijack that. And no one knows. Once your program done, then that service will not be available. So your service will only be activated by request. So there is no tight connection. It is, just request-based connection. Just like you're, taking water from your tap. Questions so far? So far, so good? People on phone? Okay. So let me go through now my slides. So everything will understand. So this is what today's all things in the world is going through this way. Either you're using VPC your own, or you're using IoT, or you're using web applications, or you're using any devices. All those devices are going to talk to API Gateway. The talk between here to here is normally happen through JSON. I'll restrict my conversation with JSON, but Some company use XML also. JSON is stand for JavaScript Object Notation. So request, which is sent by client, will be in JSON. And then once API receives that, API is going to pass that to Lambda. And then Lambda will be your program. You can write this program in a language of your choice. Client has no connections. The program will run it, and once it converts, it gives you JSON back, and the client will get JSON back. So these process almost every company use. So when you go in interview, you just need to remind this thing. This is what you have done. Now you need to come up with a story about, let's say, example, parking meter, or you can come up smart meter, or you can come up with the weather. You can do this thing with Raspberry Pi. So if you have Raspberry Pi, you can do. So let me give you an example. 2 years back, we had like a students from high school. They were Conant Frame high school students. So when they came here and I said, what kind of project they want to do? Like 2 years back during COVID time. So they say, yeah, we want to do something like cloud-based project. So I bought Raspberry Pi, which is $20 a piece, $20. And Raspberry Pi, we have like memory chip. We install Linux. Diane, you mentioned about the project, right? You are most welcome to do. I can happy to give you the devices. I do have a Raspberry Pi, and you can buy it also. The Raspberry Pi, tiny chip, right? And then we bought like a 24, I think 8 GB RAM with chip, and then they install Python program. So first of all, and then we install Python, and then they dot client. I give them client also. So good news, Flask is so easy. You can download and then ready. Now Google has a Google Cloud. There is a Google Console is available, so free. Google Console available. There are many console available free. So that free, they create an account and they have a web service URL. So first of all, which is nothing but API URL. So this API URL, they got it. And now using the Raspberry Pi, they wrote a program, they add a camera on top of it. So if they see, camera see your picture, it sends the picture information to API Gateway that this image do I have in my database. So if the database has this image, it sends signal attendance complete. If you are new face, then it say, oh, new member, what's your name? And as soon as you add name, entry added. Next time when you see the face, oh, existing student, attendance complete. So we created a facial recognition program. 11th grader students, no prior Java, no prior cloud, no prior experience. In less than 2.5 weeks, they made a prototype. And this prototype is right now, they made it open source. It's completely because of Amazon service. Amazon has a service called image recognition. Now, many times you might have seen movie Mission Impossible, but Ethan kind of see like this, right? Or a thumbprint, or he cut the hand. What is that? Those are all image recognition. So when you see this face and the door will open and he does something and he does, so those are image recognition. They're exactly the same way. They work through web service, they work through API, and they work through laptop. Even high schoolers can do. So if you are 4 or 5 people want to do a project, and that is your selling story. Because in your interview, you need to say something. You can't say I did a Lambda and I know Lambda. You need to tell how you use Lambda, how you use API Gateway, how you use web service. Make sense, sir? Any questions so far? Good. JSON editor online. So JSON editor online. Search on Google, JSON editor online. So next 2 hours, we'll be talking about how to use Lambda, API Gateway, and web services. I'm hoping you all have downloaded Postman. In case if you're not downloaded, please download Postman. It will take a minute. When you're doing break also, you can download also. So JSON editor online, right? Now click on this. Now, when you click on it, you may have a little bit different thing, but you will have something like this. If you see something here, delete it. If you're empty, no problem. Are you guys able to see something like this? Awesome. So JSON has 4 rules. How many rules? 4 rules. Please pay attention so you can understand. First, you start with curly bracket and you close with curly bracket. Rule number 1. You start with curly bracket, you close with curly bracket. Clear? The second rule. anything you start, which is a key, and then colon, and then there's a value. The key value. If there is a multiple key, comma, you do another key, and then colon, and you have value. Make sense or not? So you always remember, you do comma and your key like that. So that's the second rule, key value. Speak with me.
Key value.
The third rule is if you have one key and multiple value. So if you have one key, like example hobby. So example hobby, and you have multiple value, then you colon and you do rectangle bracket and you define value. So you can say sports in double quotations, you can say comma, music in double quotations like that, right? So first is the curly bracket start, curly bracket end. Second is the key value. Third is the key, colon, rectangle bracket, and the bunch of value. So this is called list. Rectangle bracket means list. And the fourth rule is you can have structure within structure. And I'm going to show you that. Structure within a structure. Okay, so let's understand one by one. So first you do curly bracket start, and as soon as you do that, it will automatically close your curly bracket. Rule number one, clear? Please do so along with me. Don't just watch, make sure you do it. Because if you don't do it, you will not learn it. Okay, so do it. Don't watch it, just do it. So curly bracket start, press enter, and you automatically close the curly bracket. Clear? Now let's say I want to create internet device. Okay, IoT, the request, right? So if I want to create a request, so first I'll say asset ID. So I'll say asset ID. That's my key. Colon, let's say I create a 111 like that, something like that. That's my ID. Then second thing, like example, meter number. So let's say meter number. So I create that so you can understand how it works in a real life like that. Make sense? So there are, how many keys I have? Two here, key one and value. And there is a comma, right? Key and value. Pretty good.
Wouldn't put the brackets around 111.
Double quotation.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, it's a double quotation. You don't have to put double quotations. You can write spelling. You can. I always use double quotation because that's where it's number or not number, not a problem. So example, if I have spelling, I can do double quotation. I also do double quotation for number. You don't have to do double quotation for number, but if you do it, not a problem. Make sense? Now, let's say comma, oops, comma, like a street, cross street. So let's say cross street means nearby street. So example, colon, and I have two streets. So I'll say street one, just an example, and I'll say street two. So they kind of identify the meter with geolocation because sometimes you might have trouble. So they kind of create this kind of location. So through geolocation, they can see. Many people are smart. So they use like some kind of drone to observe that the car are parked or not, and you get a ticket if your meter is expired and all. So now if you go like big parking lot, there is no human coming. Drone comes and then they take a picture, and through image they kind of map it, and through image, oh, there's a car park and there is no associated bill. So give the parking ticket for this guy. So they do like that. So they remove the human aspect now. Now, so this is the rule number 3, key and multiple values. Make sense or not? Now, comma, let's say address. This is rule number 4. So let's say I give address like 9. In address, it's not easy to give address, so I have another structure. So structure within structure. Make sense? Address, I cannot write in easy language, so structure within a structure. So I can say here, address 1, then I can say, just an example. Oops, sorry. Address 1, colon, I can say 951, not Plum Road. And then I can say city, let's say Sharpen. And zip code, comma, zip, and you did 60173. Make sense? So if you see here rules, so you can understand rule number 1, you start a curly bracket, you end a curly bracket. Rule number 2, your key and your value. And rule number 3, where your key and your bunch of value, which is the rectangle block, right? And rule number 4, your structure within a structure. If you see anywhere red color, it means you made a mistake. You fix it, right? So JSON is more readable and it's browser preferred. Browser likes this kind of thing. So browser, all mobile device, all browser likes JSON. So that's why majority request and response in web services are happening through this thing. Now, after that, comma, and they can say start time. So start time. Let's say example, you start at 8 a.m. So 8 a.m. right? And peak time, let's say, so I can say 2 hours. Makes sense or not? So I'm creating a request like this. So comma is missing. So you can see now I create a nice payload for my parking meter, which is called request. So this is what you're going to send it to in your web services. Make sense? So again, if you get anywhere red color, most likely red color happened because you forgot the comma. So if you forgot the comma, you get that, or you forgot the double quotation, you get that. So make sure you don't have red color. You see how beautiful it is? There's no red color. And if it is not a red color, then you are doing great. If it is red color, then you're not doing good. Question, concerns, doubt about creating a JSON. Every web service need request and response. So request means you are sending, client will send, a program will send to the server. So when you send to cloud, you are sending request, and when you get it, you get a response. And that concept is called payload. Request and response is called payload. Most of the cloud applications are using web service called REST. REST stands for representational state. So we'll talk about more about that. I have a video which I think added in your agenda. Watch about REST versus SOAP. Again, we will run out of time, and that's why I'm not going to discuss more about that. But watch that video, REST versus SOAP, because it will help you. Most of the browser-based application, most mobile-based application use REST. In easy language, it is sending the JSON and asking one entity at a time. And I'll cover that. REST like 4 words. And we talked about one day, if you remember, 4 words. Get means you're reading. Put means you're updating. Post means you're creating. And delete means you are removing, right? So we talked one day, if you remember that. So we are using REST service with the 4 words. Get means you're reading. Post means you're creating. Put means you're updating. And delete means you're removing. Make sense? So we're going to do the step by step. Process is pretty simple. It's not like a VPC. It's not like complex. It's simple, easy process. I'm pretty positive everyone will be able to do it. Good. Any questions, people on phone?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Sure.
So when you see on line number 5, it says address,
Mhm.
then space and colon and curly bracket.
Mhm.
There is a space between the just by the colon.
Yeah, space doesn't matter. You
It doesn't matter, right? It's not like a Linux.
No, it is not like Linux. So space
Okay.
doesn't matter. If you add more space, it's not a problem. The only thing matter is comma, double quotation, and all. So I did this thing so more readable, but you don't have to do space.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? So many times, I remember one time when I went for interview, they asked me to write this type of thing in interview. So they give me paper and they give me a pen and say, can you write this thing? This is called payload. We call payload, we call request. So write it. So if you're ever done, you should be able to. So now think about if I ask you to write a payload for your payment processing. So what happened? Credit card number, credit card expiry date, CVV, credit card first name, last name, address, same concept, yes or no. So it's not different than what you're learning. But the only thing you need to, how about that thinking process? Because they ask suddenly and you will not able to think, then you say, oh my God, I don't know anything. Everything is like that. Like example, instead of this, let's say your camera, and you're sending your weather because your house temperature, you're sending. So your phone, you can see that, right? How it does? Same thing. It will have asset ID. It will have that when you have temperature, right? So temperature minimum, maximum and average temperature in 1 minute. So they will send that information. And similar, the data will be sent to the server and your phone will show the result. Make sense? So it is like that. Yes.
Like about the structure, like structure within the structure.
Yeah, this is the one. Yeah.
So why would we need to use, why would you recommend structure within the structure?
Very
What if I
simple.
just go long?
Very nice. Very nice. So can you explain your name? What's your name? Sajjad.
Last week.
Easy, easy. Sajjad is easy. Understanding? Okay. Can you explain your last name?
Bashir.
Easy, right? If I ask you, how old are you? You don't have to tell. It's easy.
Yeah.
But can you explain your car? Car.
Yeah.
Honda will give you clarity? Say yes or no? No. Can you explain more?
Color.
So that's called structure. That's called structure.
Yeah.
Without structure, it will confuse me. Do you guys agree or not? So car has a structure, color, make, model, year, price. You have to explain me. So whenever you need to explain more, you need a structure. Make sense? If I keep doing separate, it will confuse people. But when I say I'm talking about address, then people have mindset, address one, city, state, zip, like that. So that's why structure is important. Make sense? It gives you more clarity. Can I write in a line like this? You can, but it will confuse people. So example, if I say explain movie, movie has title, movie has a year, movie has a price, no problem. But if I say director, then actor, it's a structure, right? Actor has a first name, last name, actor has a role, actor has a year. So more detail required, structure. Less detail required, you can do key or key value.
Is that for modeling based, like when somebody is reading it, then it makes sense? Or is it for compiling purposes?
Both. Both. Because over there, if you send the structure, they're going to do address validator. Because they know that is a structure, so they're going to send to post office and they're going to do address validator. So if you are giving me credit card here, credit card, then you will say credit card number, CVV and all, so they will send it to GP Morgan and say validate it. If you send me separately, then I need to do overwork. So the reason we do structure, so it's easy both sides, right? I like one thing in America, and I still make mistake. When you write envelope, there is a structure from and to.
Yeah.
In India, it was quite different. And many times you would be laughing. Many times my mail with post came back to me. And I said, what happened? Because I forgot about from and to properly. So after I was in Michigan, I was driving all the way because I want to really deliver that. So 24/7 post office, I went there, I dropped it, and after a couple of days, it came back to me. I said, what happened? The reason from and to. So structure matters. Do you guys agree or not? Because here, there is a different way we do from and to. In India, it was different. But what confusion? So your Python program is running on a internet, device, right? And that device, when it sends information to server, it is using your request in a JSON format. So this is the format, right? The format you are sending request. So when you send request to the API, which is in our case we call server, but I will say API, you will send request to JSON. Now program will use the JSON and do all the necessary logic. And when it send it back response, when it send back response, it will also send back to in the form of JSON. Right? It's a sending, it's a communication. So this is the communication, right? When you send an email, you are using like a from, and then you are using subject, and you are using body, right? You are writing content. So that's a format you send. So when you send it, I can easily understand. But when I said, I'll also follow the format. So between two parties, sender and receiver, they agreed upon that we will be sending in a JSON format. Other people will understand JSON format, and then they will send response in JSON. So JSON is just for communication.
Right. True.
Sure. Program.
Also, the API will be communicating with the database. The database has a list of 1 million customers with credit card numbers. So every API is going to talk to the database backend to validate that information in the database is correct.
Yeah, let me explain. So first of all, you're asking wonderful questions. So thank you for asking. So let's talk about this is the client, which is the IoT device, right?
Yeah.
And this IoT device is sending JSON. I hope everyone is clear. JSON is a request. When you send somebody text, Instead of text, we are sending JSON, right? Now it will come to API. Now I want to make sure everyone understand. API doesn't do anything. API is, think about the office admin sitting on a door, waiting for the newcomers. As soon as newcomer comes, API says, "Why are you here?" And then they will check, are you right user? Are you having authentication? Da, 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 da. Basic check. And then API will hand over to Lambda function. It doesn't do anything. It will send Lambda, hey, I received something. Just like an office admin say, hey, this person is here waiting for you. So now that person will go to the particular office, and that office is nothing but Lambda. Lambda say, okay, oh, I got a credit card information. So Lambda will say, oh, credit card information. Lambda knows how to make Citibank call or JP Morgan call and validate. That part, no one will know how it does. But if you're writing Python, you're calling JP Morgan Web Services. So you're also using JP Morgan Web Service. Let's say you have address, then it will send to USPS and say, if this USPS, it will send, it is calling web service. So this is also in JSON. This is also in JSON. Good news, you already gave a JSON. So they will use that JSON, send to JP Morgan Chase and say, hey, do payment processing, or is it valid? And then it will, whatever address you send, it will send to USPS. USPS will also receive JSON. They are doing web service. So real work will happen at USPS address validation, JP Morgan payment processing, and they will send response to Lambda. Then Lambda is now putting all the correct information in database and then send response back. So this is
Lambda is the function.
Lambda is the program. So just like in Java, you call JDBC, just like Lambda will call web service. Lambda itself calls many web services, right? It internally call other web services also. But client doesn't need to do anything. Client just send to API gateway, behind the scene, everything, this program will do magic. And the program can call many web services and get you the response. The logic is here. Everything has happened here. So that's why you need to know Python and Java. You are going as a cloud architect. And benefit of cloud architect, drawing picture, not writing code. So as a cloud architect, you just draw. You see how I'm drawing? Concept, make sure, if you know a little bit, you can create a POC, proof of concept, but you don't have to write in and out logic. If you write it, your title is cloud developer. So we are not going as a cloud developer, we are going as a cloud architect. I'm not saying you cannot go as a developer. If you have coding experience with Python, you can go as a cloud developer too. Again, there is no benefit, plus versus minus, both kind of well-respected job. But in developer, they write code, an architect write picture. So if I draw this architect, I'm a solution architect. Now I need to know what is Lambda. If somebody say, how does JSON works? Or if I'm using database, then say what kind of RDS you are using, right? If I'm using some messaging. So I will show you as I go further how to architect that. Make sense? But architect, you just draw picture. You don't do anything else. People will ask question, why Lambda? You educate them. Why this? You educate. What is API Gateway? Educate them. That's what I'm doing right now. You will be doing that when you go in the industry. People will listen to you. Yes.
So is the networking part of the architecture?
Yeah, VPC is extremely important because Lambda here in Lambda is very secure, but that VPC, the networking part was taken care by AWS. But you don't have to do that because they have done it. It's AWS managed. But there are certain things you might be doing as well. So you need to know when networking. See, as an architect, 6-7 things matter. Security is number one. Are you guys agree or not? Because once you're compromised for lifetime. Do you guys agree? If somebody stole your data, what do you call it, SSN and all, it's going to be nightmare, right? So security is the number one. Performance. Do you guys agree or not? Availability. If something goes down, right? Scalability, scale, right? Maintainability, right? Load balancer perspective. How can I do maintain and all, right? Availability, cost wise. So cost is your concern, right? So these are the things you have to concern as an architect. If one of the concerns you are not clear, you will fail in interview because they're going to check with the labs. Are you clear with the security? Are you clear with the scalability? Are you clear with the cost aspect? Because cost should not increase. Lambda increase the cost or decrease the cost? Makes sense. So that is one of the reasons you recommend them, right? And Lambda provide more flexibility because your client can be Java. Listen carefully. The client can be Java. If you're programmers who know C++ a programmer who knows C#, programmer who knows Java. They can write, each can write Lambda function in different language. You don't need to say, hey, everyone needs to know Java. Everyone needs to know Python. You don't have to do. You know Python? Write Lambda in Python. You know Java? Write, because each function is independent. Makes sense? If you're doing calculator, add in Python, multiplication in Java, and division in a node, and maybe other, you can write in Ruby. So almost everyone can be productive. Makes sense? So Lambda gives you a lot of flexibility. Trust me, more you will know Lambda, more you will like Lambda. Because I use Lambda almost 10 plus years. I used to since 2017, so maybe 6-7 years. I've been using Lambda. Trust me, before Lambda, we used to use RPC, we use Corba. There are many technology I have used, but no one come closer to Lambda. It's so simple. You will do in 10 minutes, trust me. So simple. Any other questions? Good. So we are clear with JSON. It's 8 o'clock, but we'll still jump into our AWS console. I want to get you going. So let's do AWS console. So go to AWS console, login. So do AWS console login. AWS console login. And login. And then click on login. By time you should know how to log in, right? I don't have to educate that. Sorry for that. As I'm always happy to go step by step in case someone missed the class, they should be able to do that. We are login as a root. Login. So at this moment, I'm in. Let me know if you're in. We'll take 10-15 minutes and we'll do it, and then we'll take a break. Okay, sorry.
No, they're still charging me.
Yeah, that's maybe other services might be running. We'll discuss. I mean,
I wanted
Right.
to check what services are running right now. Like what?
I'll explain. Right now, let me do Lambda, because we'll do detour and will not be able to do the main item, right? I'll explain that, the cost explorer. I'll explain that. So now let's get started. These are like series of steps we're gonna do. Okay, so don't stop me after 15 minutes, like that. If you are behind, question that moment. I will draw it, I will explain it, but there are a lot of click I will do. Okay, so don't miss me in a click. I'm not going to go fast. I'll do drawing and all, but sometimes you ask me after 30 minutes, where you were? I'm catching up. It's not going to be helpful. In that case, you watch recording. Make sense or no? Because I expect now this, because this is our 6-7 week, right? I expect how to navigate it. So let's search Lambda. So when you search Lambda, you will see the run code without thinking about server, which is called serverless. So in exam, if they ask serverless, they are talking about Lambda. Click on it. Now Lambda is a region specific, so be careful. Right now, your Lambda is Ohio. At least for me, it's Ohio. So make sure you do that. So if you are having different region, make sure you select that. They will not charge if you create function. They will charge only when you execute the function. Make sense? Now, can I count everyone is in this screen?
Saying you change to Ohio.
I would keep Ohio because you're closer, right? I would keep Ohio. If you are Virginia, I would keep Ohio because it will be a lot easier for us. And make sure you remember it, because this lab are continuous lab. So next 1.5 hour lab will be one lab only. It's not like too many labs. So if you miss one step, we're going to do overall 70 to 80 steps, right? It's just navigation, not too much thing. If you follow, you will be able to do. As I said before, 11th grader are able to do amazing job. You guys are much smarter. So you will be able to do, make sure you follow the steps correctly. Can I count everyone is here?
Yes.
Good. So now let's click on create function. Create functions. Now when you click on create functions, you will see a lot of options here. First option is author from scratch, use blueprint, which is nothing but template, and container image. Now container image is Docker aspects. We are not doing any of that thing, but many people write the program and then they do content writers. I would not recommend that because this is unnecessary headache because you are already using AWS as a managed service. So if you're using managed service, writing program either this way or this way is good. Now, if you do blueprint way, you will kind of lose some learning. So we're going to start from zero and start with a step by step. So it will be easier. So we are doing this option, right? This is kind of gives you everything learning because we want to learn this thing. So that's why we are using this. Later on, you may want to use blueprint. It will speed up the process, but we are learning, so we're going to write. Today date is February 7th. So let's write a Python pip 7. So at least we know our function name is Python pip 7. Right? Do not create a space. Always function name is one word. Okay, no space. Try not to create uppercase, lowercase because it creates a case sensitive nature. Make sure you always use lowercase if it is not specifically mentioned, because it's always a good idea. Now, if you scroll down, Lambda is being supported by so many languages. You can see here. Trust me, this is amazing. This is amazingly. So they have supported so many languages. You can use .NET, Go language, Java, all. So we're going to use Python. If you like Python 3.9, you can use Python 3.9. If you use Python 3.7, they have. So it doesn't matter. We are going to use basic functions, so it doesn't matter. So I'm using Python 3.9. Now, please remember, I want to repeat again. When you select this Python 3.9, I'm in Ohio. If I go to Virginia, it is possible they may not have 3.9. They might have 3.7. So you need to know which environment you are using, which region you are using, and based on that, you select the function and the platform. So right now I'm using Python 3.9 because I'm in Ohio. If I go to Virginia and if they have only 3.7, then I need to write my program in 3.7 version. Make sense? It's a little.
Find out before even starting that.
You can click here and just see here. This is what you.
You will automatically let me know. Like,
Right now,
based on the region.
yeah, right now you see all those versions, right?
Mhm.
This is what they have. So think about them when you go to restaurant. Sorry, my mistake. When you are going to hotel, before you book hotel, there is amenities, right? You can see they have a swimming pool, they have this thing, they have Wi-Fi. Yes or no? Same thing they are saying. This Lambda they can support in this language. Use it or not use it, right? This is good enough for anyone, right? So we are using 3.9. So far so good. Now they're asking machine. Doesn't matter technically speaking, but by default we are using default one, no problem. Now permissions is needed when you are trying to access specific thing. Listen carefully. You already know IAM, and we already talk about when service talk to service, you do need an IAM role. Yes or no? Say yes or no. Yes. Right? We talk about, remember, user, group, role. When service talk to another service, when Lambda talks to database, which is called RDS, you need a role. Yes or no? When Lambda talks to S3, you need a role. Yes or no? When Lambda talks to EC2, you need a role. But right now, we are not doing any of that. So we don't need a role. But when you do project and when you are doing some kind of Lambda wants to talk to RDS, Lambda wants to do email sending, then you need a role to do so. Make sense? If Lambda wants to consume any service, you need a role. Right now, we don't need a role because we are not doing any consumptions of service. Make sense or no? In your interview or in your exam, people will ask you this kind of question that if Lambda wants to talk to database, then you need an RDS role. If Lambda wants to stop the server and start the server, you can do that. You can automatically stop and start the server. Then Lambda need an EC2 full role. Make sense? If Lambda wants to send email, then you need an email as SES role. Make sense? In easy language, whatever Lambda wants to talk, Lambda need a role. Are we clear? Good. Now scroll down and it is saying create a functions. Create a functions. So it will create a dummy functions for me with Python syntax. With Python syntax. Let's click on create functions. And good news, congratulations, you created your Lambda function. Was it hard at all? It will create a Lambda functions for us and it will show the code also. So you can see right now, it created Python functions. I can add a trigger when to run these functions. I'll cover in a few minutes. But if you scroll down, there is a code. You can see the code in a few seconds. You will see the code. It still seems like taking time for my machine, but you might see the code here. Am I right? Yes or no? I don't know, it took longer for me, but normally you should see the code here. Let me just click a couple of places and come back. So it gives me code. Yeah. And you can see now it did the code for us. So those who are Python lovers, you can write any Python code and it will work. There are few advice. Again, those who do not know Python, don't worry about, don't cry. But you can see DEF stands for function. So in those who write a program in Python, DEF stands for function. That's called definition. What is DEF stands for? Definition. And then it is used lambda handler. That's underscore function. So this is the function name. And there is an input, event, and context. Now, event through you can get input. Event through you get input, and context through you get configurations. So if you want to know AWS related informations, you get through context. And if you want requests, remember we talk about JSON. We talk about JSON. We talk about payload. If you want to get that, you get through event. So you need two things: event and context. If you want environment specific thing, like example, what Python you're running, what machine you're running, what is system date, you get through context. But if you want like what data user has sent or payload is coming, you receive through event. So far so good? Say yes or no?
Yes.
Good.
So
Now,
it's lambda handler function is in JSON import JSON.
sorry, could you repeat again?
Is that right, Tushar? The lambda handler function.
That is this one.
The first line is import JSON, so that function belongs in.
No. You're going too fast. JSON is used for this one, dump. So I'll cover that.
Okay.
Lambda is actually AWS function. I can write my name here also, as long as I map it. So there is a mapping here. I'll show you in a few minutes. But this is not coming from JSON. This is coming from AWS. AWS is a guideline that naming convention you need to use. But they use JSON because of this mapping. Right? So how it works, it will convert this thing in a JSON format. That's all it is. So JSON dump means the string which you see here convert into JSON format. I'll show that in a few minutes. So far so good. Now, this JSON, what do you call it? Lambda is an infinite topic. I'm trying my best to explain in much more detail, but please understand. Anytime you create a Lambda functions, AWS create a file, and that file it stores somewhere. Normally, AWS store in S3. So this is an interview question. All Lambda functions, AWS stores in S3. So later on, you can use it. If you add your own functions, you can also import and store in S3. So AWS stores all Lambda functions in S3. Now, this program by default does not run. So by default does not run. So the program only runs through event. So Lambda itself is not a program which is auto running. Lambda program needs something, a trigger or event. If you don't even trigger that, Lambda won't run. Because it's not like a remote where you press the button and it will work. So you have to create event. So example, if somebody enter the coins in the parking meter, then it will work. But parking meter itself will not call to the Lambda or API gateway. It will sitting, waiting for somebody to enter the coin. Make sense or no? So the thing about when you're driving your car, nowadays I'm driving my car with transponder not working. Good news, I have a transponder, but it's not working. And bad news, they charge. And I want to go fast. So I drive, and every time I drive, the blue lights are not enabled. So what happened? Do you guys know what happened? When you're driving car with iPass, ideally, blue light should show up, right? Transponder, they charge to transponder, right? But for me, it's not happening. So what happens? So they immediately take a picture of your car, name tag, and then send you mail. But good news, there is a small suggestion there that you download the application. So I have a phone. So as soon as I come close to iPass, the phone detects that I'm close to iPass. So my transponder is not working, but they charge to my phone application. Wow, IoT, Internet of Things. Because the transponder is not working, but my phone is working because my phone application, I have installed the phone, I have Chicago iPass, so that instantly it detects and boom, it charged. So I am riding with the dead transponder. I'm not buying it, but I'm still able to drive it. So that is the power of event. Make sense? Because it events me on my cell phone because the geolocation is matching. Because of geolocation matching, event comes and boom, cell phone, my phone is charged, which is, they're not charged. Otherwise, they charge more money than transponder. The transponder is discounted from, right, 70 cents or 75 cents. Otherwise, they charge $1.50. So what I'm trying to say, Lambda only invoked through event. So we're going to create a dummy event. Are you guys ready? I'm going to do 6-7 steps. You don't ask any question, otherwise I'll forget about my chain of thoughts. Okay, I want to make sure we run the program. Before I run, 200 means success. Speak with me. 200 means, so there are certain codes you need to remember. 200 means success. So you will prefer 200. If you see anytime 400 or 500 means error. 400 and 500 means error. 500 means server error and 400 means client error. Only remember this for now. Clear? 200 means success. 400 means client made a mistake. Client in the sense of when you send the request, you made a mistake. Or 500 means server made a mistake. Makes sense? Something happened wrong. Are you understanding why it is important? Debugging purpose. If I get 200, awesome. And if I get 400, something wrong in my request. And if I get 500, something wrong in my program. Are we clear? The request, who sent request? Client sent. So I will get 400. And if servers has a problem, I will get 500, 501, 502, 503. So make sure you see the status code and you know what's the problem. You're expert now. 200 means success. 400 means client error. And 500 means, see, 15 years you explain in 15 seconds, right? There are other codes out there, but majority codes you will see this 200, 400, and 500. So now how do I trigger it? So first thing first, go to File menu and save it. File menu and save it. So File menu and save it. You guys are doing awesome. So it's saved. Now you are going to do deploy. You're going to do deploy. Deploy means you're letting AWS, hey, I'm sending you a program. Put that program in your some of the server where you have Python 3.9. I don't know, but put it somewhere. So now I'm going to do deploy. Deploy means I'm asking AWS, hey, deploy this program. I will call in the future. AWS is not going to charge me. So now AWS is keeping the program wherever they have Python running. It may be 10 machine, it can be 10,000 machine. Do I care? No, they are not going to charge me. So I deploy. So when I deploy, now I can test it. Do you guys agree or not? So in order to do test, they give you a small environment called debugging environment, which we call test. You're going to configure test event. So let's click on configure test event because without event, nothing will work. So configure test event. So we are here. Now, when you are here, you give an event name. So like example, I'm going to say my event 1, just any name. You're testing event 1. Now, as I already taught you, an expert, make you expert, everything will go in JSON. So you know now, the curly bracket, start, key value, yes or no. But my program doesn't expect any input. So I can remove this part and I can say curly bracket start and curly bracket ends. That's it. Makes sense or no? So that's called empty JSON. Curly bracket start, curly bracket ends. That's the rule number 1. Remember we talked about just after curly bracket press enter, so it will do closing. So basically what I'm saying that event 1 is nothing but this is my request. My program doesn't expect anything. Remember I said function has 2 parameters, event and context. So whatever I send will go to event. My program doesn't read anything, so I will be fine. And later on, I'll show you how to make useful program. Make sense, huh? So I'm almost ready. I'm gonna create it and save it. So when I save, event is ready. Do you guys ready? So save it. So now event is ready. So please understand when I save, I come back, and if you move your mouse, you will see your event here. Ready or not? And now we are ready to test. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Click on test. So when you click on test, it is testing and you got the response 200. 200 means success or failure. And you got a response. You send event to Lambda, Lambda give you success. And there are so many other informations are there. You don't have to worry about. After break, I'm going to show you add functions. So you will understand a little bit more. And then we'll do API Gateway. Okay, we have a lot to cover. So stay tuned. Don't disappear. If you want coffee, drink it, stretch yourself. We have a lot to cover. Before we go home, we want to make sure we also validate through postman also. Make sure your postman downloaded if you have not downloaded. Okay, so let's check.
Yeah.
Now we are going to do around 20 plus steps. So I just want to give you a recipe what we're going to do. For your Google class, I'm hoping all of you have access. In Google class, I added one example, which will make life easy, but I want to show you what we are trying to do here. So rather than creating a just hello world, let's make it practical. So we're going to create a function called add. Relax, okay? Make sure you pay attention. We're going to create a function called add. And then we will expect that add will have two parameters, x and y. And then we'll do addition and we'll return the answer, which is x plus y. Easy. So this way we can send our JSON nicely. We can send our JSON with values x equal to something, y equal to something, and we can expect JSON back also. So this way we can do end-to-end trick, how the events can be passed, so you can understand. In your homework, I'm going to give you two, Lambda functions to create, which is very similar. I'm also going to give you a reference URL. If you go there, you will get a lot of hints also. AWS documentations are awesome. We can do that. So first, I want to show you the example which I have in a Google class. I'm about to submit. Oh, you already received most likely a few minutes back. So this is the small function, because many of you may not know the programming. So I'm going to explain that quickly and then we'll do this. Okay, relax. Don't worry about anything. So this is a small functions I kind of pre-made for you because many of you might not know the programming. So first thing first, don't worry about this line. Think about this is the tool you're using. The logic starts from here. This is normally we keep the same name, Lambda handler. And there are always two inputs, always, no matter what type of Lambda function you write in the world, this is always. So in easy language, the first line will remain same. Make sense? The colon means begin. Colon means begin, and the alignment has to be there. If the space is mismatched, nothing will work. So alignment has to be there because Python is all about alignment. Good news, if you do colon and if you press enter, it does automatically alignment and follow that alignment. If you screw up the alignment, you will have error. Now, this event allows me to read my parameter. So if I'm going to pass request, please pay attention. If I'm going to pass request A in double quotation, which is key, let's say colon 5, comma, B in double quotation, colon 7. So this A and B which I'm passing, I can get that thing through event. So that's what I'm getting here. Because I'm passing A here, I'm saying get me A, and whatever you get, you can pass to the variable. This can be A or it can be X also. This one and this one doesn't has to be same, but I just kept the same so you can relate that. So this one, this side client will use. Client can write whatever they want, but whatever they write A, or let's say if they write A, I need to write A here. If client write B here, I need to write B here. And whatever I get from client, I'm storing into variable. Variable is nothing but temporary storage. Can I use X here? Yes. Can I use Y here? Yes. If I use X here, then I use X here and I use Y. So far, so good. Any questions? Do you guys agree that JSON key value, not a problem? Now, if I pass X, will it work? No. Why? Because it will come to here X. And if you're saying give me A, if it is not there, it will tell null. It will get null. So when you get null, what does it mean? Mismatch. You're passing X here and you're asking give me A. X and A doesn't match, you get a null. So whenever you get null, it is a giving clue the key is passed wrong. Key is passed wrong. So either you change here or you change here. You have to change one place. Make sense? Now, when you do this calculations, you got the A from event and you got a B from event. Now you say A plus B, and whatever you get the C. So you got the C as the answer. So far so good. Now, as always, when we return, we are saying, remember structure within structure. So this is structure. Status code 200 means success. And we are saying JSON dump, right answer. So you will get a JSON like this. Key will be answer C. So you will get a key answer C equals to, that's the key, colon strc, which str means string and C means whatever the answer you have, you're going to put it. So if I pass 2 and 5, then answer will be 7. So these lines, JSON dump, convert these things into JSON format, key value. Key value. So far so good. You will use this often. However, you are not writing program. For part of this class, you are just understanding how JSON works. So here you are going to pass 2 parameters. Why 2? Because I'm reading 2. What if you are passing 3 parameters? What do you need to do? Read 3 parameters. Make sense? This line you are not going to change. Why? Because this will I already done for you. If it is C here, you are using C here. Make sense or not? If you use Z here, then you change Z. Make sense? Are you ready? Okay. So now copy this thing from your Google class and go to your Lambda function, which we created a few minutes back. And you will see that Lambda function here. So click on this tab. Click on this tab. And then remove this, highlight and remove, and paste this part. As you can see, it will automatically do alignment for you. So you can see it does proper alignment. So you can see everything is aligned. Make sense? Everything is in Google class. You just copy paste. This is the library. You're using this library to convert these things into JSON format. Rest of the things you're getting event A and B. Now A you are getting passed here, and B you are passing here, and then you are doing addition. So far so good. Clear? Who is going to pass event? Who is going to pass event? Client. So you need to create an event accordingly. Before break we took an event, but that event was empty. Do you guys agree or not? So if I pass that event, what will be the value of A? It will be null. And it will be null B, so it will cry because there is no data pass in this event. Until I pass A, this program is going to cry. Until I pass B, this program will cry. Do you guys agree or not? Say yes or no. Good. So now save the program, file, save it. Make sure you go along with me, okay? Don't go too slow. File and save. Every time you make a change, make sure you save it and then you deploy it. And then you deploy it. Doable? Save and deploy. Why? Because every change has to be deployed. Once you deploy, if everything is successful, if you see green sign, now you can test it. First, I'm going to test with the event which I created before the break. Make sense or not? Make sure you see on the screen. After you deploy, I'm going to test with this. This event was nothing but empty. Do you guys agree or not? So you will see exception. Yes or no? Do you think when I have exception or error, will I get 200 or something else?
Error.
Error. So now let's see here. So click on event. Click on event. And when you click on event, sorry, click on test here. Sorry for that. So click on test and you will get an error. And when you get an error, you will see that it does cry. It says that I did not get this A. I did not get A. See, it's clearly saying crying. Read that error message. It is clearly saying, I did not get A. It also says line 6, A is the problem. I did not get A. It is crying, crying, crying. But when it is crying, it is also sending me JSON. So if I read it in English, it says error message A, key error means you did not pass key. Got it. So that is for sure. My program is working, but I did not pass the proper key. So click on here. The reason it is crying because the first one is not provided. And same thing B is not provided as well. Make sense? So now let's create a new event. So we're going to click on test and let's click on configure test event. Configure test event. So when you click on configure test event, it will come back here. This time I'm going to say A, please follow me, double quotation A, and then colon, remember you're expert, colon, sorry, A, colon 2, comma, B, then colon, any value you can pass. So let me make a little zoom so you can see better. Remember, key has to be in double quotation, then colon and any value. You can pass 200, 500, doesn't matter. And the first key after that, comma, and the second key. Make sense? Remember, you're expert. Start with curly bracket, end with curly bracket, and double quotation A, double quotation complete, and pass 20, 30, doesn't matter. Then comma, double quotation B, curly bracket, colon, and 30. Pretty easy. So this is my event, and I'm passing two keys, A and B. Make sense or no? Say yes, right? I'm going to copy this thing for my future reference. You also can do it because it will be useful. So keep it in a future reference. So I'm going to keep it in future reference so I don't have to enter again and again because I don't like to enter again and again. So where did it go? So far, so good. Now, if you scroll down, there should be a save button. Why it is not saving? Oops, I didn't save it. Interesting. Save button is not enabled. Was it in what is enabled for you or no? Yeah, it should enable, but for some reason it's not enabled. That's surprising me. Now it enabled. So I'm going to save it. Okay. So now you know that we are passing two things, right? Now just click on taste and say tada. You should expect 7. Was it hard at all? Ooh, 200 means good. Was it hard or easy? Right? So let me just explain here. If I go back to the configure event, and this time instead of 2, if I pass 20, and instead of 5, if I pass 50, I save this thing, and if I test it, it's going to give me 70. Do you guys agree or not? So my program is working fine. Do you agree? So when you are sometimes you are going to Experian and then ask or TransUnion and say, this is my social security. Tell me my credit score. Yes or no? Right? You're entering your SSN and you're asking credit score. You're actually doing the same thing. You're calling web service where you're passing SSN equal to this. You're sending an Experian and other create your FICO score and get you the code. So the result you're getting is the thing. Yes.
Where is the request that JSON? Is that in the Lambda function itself, or does it show here?
Event. That's your event. This is your
event is the request.
Of course, this is your request, right? You are sending it. Lambda is executing it, and Lambda is giving you response. And response, you are able to see it, right?
I see. And also in Python, the strc, you're overriding the integer and converting into a string.
Correct.
That's why showing C equals 7.
Because I'm using plus. So string plus string. So that's why plus means join. Plus means join. Pretty good. Can I count everyone is able to do?
Which I don't I see. I only see a.
No, this one. Are you not able to see this thing?
The execution info.
Yeah. Did you execute it?
Yeah, 200. Yeah, but yeah.
Sometimes
the numbers.
Sometimes you may have a little different entry, but otherwise you are good, right? Okay. So at this moment, please pay attention. At this moment, we did a basic Lambda and we tested. And we did it with the event. So now, technically speaking, you know enough. So example, if I go here and let's say I want to pass another parameter called Z. So what I'm going to do, please do so. Copy this thing, copy this line and put it Z here. So I'm going to put a Z here, Z So I'm passing third parameter. Yes or no? And then I'm using plus Z here, which is my third parameter. So you can pass any parameter of your choice. You can pass your first name, last name, email, phone number, address, like that. But here I'm passing my third parameter. I'm passing as a keyword Z. Yes or no? And I'm receiving that data and then I'm using in summation. Make sense or no? Anytime you make a change, what are you going to do? First, save it. First, save it. And then after saving, what are you going to do? Deploy it. But because now I'm passing three parameters, what am I going to do here? Test, and I need to configure it. Make sense or no?
Yeah.
And now you guys now probe, comma, what are you going to do? Comma,
Z.
you do double quotation Z, colon, let's say you pass 100 here, just an example, right? And now you save it, and you now test it, and you are having answer 170. Make sense? So technically speaking, if I know this thing, I can get a job also, because rest of the thing is a Python function. I don't care. I'm not a developer, but I know how event I pass, how my program read the event. I also know how to debug because I see my request. If there's an error, I can read about it.
Can you
sense?
create an error with 500? Or is that possible because it's a server?
You can, but right now I'm getting success, right? If you write, you know Python program, you can write if conditions. If A is there and you can generate 500 here, you just need to change the number here because you are the one who is going to send, right? If you want to send success or you want to send error, error is based on condition. If, like example, if somebody enter wrong value, you can status code, you can send 400 client side error. And if there is a problem in conversion of the value, you may want to do try catch and you can send that, hey, this is the 500. Good. Okay. Now we are going for a big journey. So if you are having stuck here, talk to your neighbor. Okay. At this moment, I need more attention now. Okay. This is the baby thingy. Baby thingy, rest of the people, if you are not able to do it, watch the recording. I will continue that. But this is the baby thing. Anybody can do it. Very simple. We kind of explain in the easy way. Now, long process we're gonna do. Okay. This is like an important process. So don't stop. If you're not able to do, watch the recording. But right now, understand the process. We are going to do 30, 40 clicks. Okay. I want to make sure you understand what I'm trying to explain. So we have a Lambda functions, which is created in Ohio. Please pay attention. Okay. Otherwise you will not understand and appreciate everything. So we created Ohio Lambda function. What is the name of the function? Python Fab 7. Do you guys agree or not? Now I will create an API gateway. Please pay attention. What you are learning here is real life people use every day. And that's why they will expect you to know. So I'm going to create API gateway. In API gateway, I have 4 functions to do, but I'm going to do only 2. Get and also post. So get and post I want to do. So when I do get, I will link the get to my Lambda functions. And I can link post to the Lambda functions. And then I have to deploy it. And then I have to test it. This time I'm testing web service. But the web service, when I test, I'm actually internally calling Lambda, which you already know. So our Lambda function expects how many inputs? 3. Remember A, B, and Z. So my web service also will expect the same input. So first input will go to my web service, where I'll pass 3 input, A, B, and Z. That web service will pass the input to Lambda as a form of event. Lambda will do the work, and Lambda will pass the response, and web service will give me the response. Make sense? So entire pipeline will do. Once we are done with that, we will publish this. And once we publish, entire world can access this URL. And that is called web URL, web service URL. So web service URL is also known as an endpoint. So when somebody say endpoint, they normally mean web service endpoint. Through that, you can consume the service. So right now we have very simple service, which is called Python Fab 7, we can consume. Now get service, anybody can consume. Get anybody can consume, you can access through browser. But for post, you need a postman, because post you cannot consume. So let me just begin. It's a journey, okay? Make sure you are following along with me, and please be careful. Always pay attention, because you might make mistake one and it won't work, okay? So we have functions ready to go. Now, right now, search on your services API. Search API Gateway. Okay, relax and pay attention. API Gateway. API Gateway. Now, this API Gateway, which we talk about many times, it will be receiving your request, and then we will be calling Lambda function, right? So click on API Gateway. There are many steps we're going to do. This is very easy steps. If you follow the steps, you will have zero problem. Okay, I give you guarantee, majority of you will be able to do it. So make sure you follow the steps correctly. Can I count everyone is here? Okay, now let's click on the Create API. Click on Create API. And when you click on Create API, it will give you options. Now there are many options available. What we are going to do is REST API. We are going to do REST API. So we have two options. I just want to make sure what's the difference between this. No, this is not, we don't want this VPC base, because we are going to make it public, which is this one. So we are going to use this one, REST API. Now somebody said, what is REST API? So there is a small architecture aspect about REST. I'm going to take a little bit time, and I want to show you what is REST means. Please try to understand. This concept, as I said before, 15 years, you are learning in 15 minutes, right? So everyone use Google? Yes, sir. Please see here, you will appreciate, because people will ask this kind of question. I'm going to make it easy for you, so you can understand what is REST means. So when I search basketball, will I get entire basketball in the world, or only 10 items? When I press enter, will I get entire basketball in the world, or only 10 items? So this is only 10 items. You can see here, I'm going through 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. And then Google is going to put like a, Google is putting like, when I move my mouse, Google is getting it. Do you guys agree or not? So like example, anytime I search, like example, I search, let's say IT expert, just like I'm searching, please pay attention. So what happened? IT expert informations are showing up, but after a while, it's going to put me this kind of information. And when I scroll it, REST information it shows. Do you guys agree or not? When I scroll it, it gives me rest of the information. Do you guys understand? So what is REST means? Unless user action, I'm not going to show everything. So example, if I'm looking for a movie, and if I'm looking for a movie in 2001, do you think IMDb show me all movie for 2010 or first 15, 20 movies? Right? And rest will follow. Do you agree or not? Because user may not be interested in getting all the details. So the concept of REST is give only what user might need. And if user wants, REST will follow. So REST means you are going to do pagination. Speak with me. Pagination means page 1 will show you, but page 2 you have to click it. Page 3 you have to click it. If you don't click, nothing will happen. Make sense? So REST allows us better performance, because you are limit the response. So that's what we are trying to do here. Can I count everyone is in this? And we are going to click on the build. So we're going to click on a build. So far so good, right? Relax and make sure you follow the steps. So click on build. Now you guys are doing superb, okay? Don't do anything else, just follow. So you already have a REST selected. And we are saying create a new API. So of course we are going to create a new API. And now we're going to give a name. So I can give any name. So because we are doing addition, I'll say add SVC. SVC means service. I can write my name, add SVC. So this is my service. I'm giving this service to all over the world. People can use the service. Just like this, Google have created math service. Just like this, Google has created search service. Just like this, Netflix has created streaming service. So they give a name which we can consume. So if I'm doing a credit card check service, then it's a credit card check service, right? Now, endpoint type. So if you remember, we did Ohio. So here we are going to go with regional. So it will allow me to select Ohio later on. Make sense? We are not going to do private, neither we are going to edge optimize. We are doing regional, which is Ohio. Later on, it will show up. So now go to create API. And that is creating API. Quite easy. We're done with the creating API. Was it hard at all? So API is nothing but facade. Speak with me, facade. Facade in the sense of office admin. That office admin is not expert, but knows how to find expert. Do you agree or not? So if you talk to office admin, hey, I want to talk to manager, she will point at. Hey, I want to talk to CEO, she will point at. Hey, I want to talk to clerk, she will point at. But office admin itself herself or himself does not have expertise. Do you guys agree? So API gateway has important benefits. First, everything comes to that gateway, so you can do metering. Speak with me. Metering means how many times you're calling. Second, are you authorized to call? What day, what time you're calling? Auditing. So metering, auditing, security, I can easily check if I have only one door. Yes or no? So API gateway allows me one door where people can come, so I can access, I can know who is accessing, what they're accessing, how long they are accessing. But API gateway is nothing. It needs to know how to call Lambda. So API gateway will now call web service. But the web service has 4 words. Remember, get, post, put, and delete. So I'm going to show you 2. So you can see here action. So in action, you're going to create a method. Create method. So click on create method. So when you click on create method, on the drop down box, you will see get. Make sense or not? You click on that and say check it. Pretty good. I like it. Remember, there is a check and you will see this. So far, so good. First, I click here and then we create a create method. And from there, we select the get and there was a checkbox. We select that and we saw this. Okay. I'm hoping so you are still with me.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Now here, there are many ways. So what you are saying here, listen carefully. You are saying API gateway. API gateway, if you get a request, you are going to call GET. That's a web service, REST web service. And GET will call Lambda. Lambda is our function. And now we have to, we are already in Ohio, so it's automatically select. And right here, Python. It will select for you, Python. So Python FIB7 automatically shows up here. So now we link that. Do you guys agree or not? These are architecture concepts. You educate people how to do it, but only one time you educate. Developer will do lifetime, but you know how it works. Okay. So get call Lambda, Lambda will call my function. So if I have multiple functions, I can call multiple functions. Now save it. You're done with the get and just say okay. So far so good. Awesome. Now we need to test it if everything is working or not. So AWS gives you test environment inside. So you don't have a postman. Ideally, any web service you need, there is an environment called postman. So a tool called postman, people use postman or SOAP-UI. In your resume, you should write that postman or SOAP-UI. Postman is normally used for REST web service and SOAP-UI normally used for XML or SOAP-based web services. But good news, AWS gives me everything. Make sure you follow the click correctly. Click on test. Say yes, right? And when you click on test, you will get this type of thing. If you scroll down, there is a button available called test. So just click on it and you should see answer here. So you see answer and answer is you are expecting, you got answer. So you got error. Remember error? Reading this error, what is the clue you got? Why we got error?
Is not defined.
So what does it mean? That I can read in English.
It is range yet to specify.
Sorry?
in an event.
Yes, it means I'm not passing event. So if I'm expecting input, then this is not going to work. Because GAT, you normally don't pass input. So we got an error, but we know why we got error. Why we are not passing A, B, and Z. Do you guys agree or not?
Yeah.
So technically, this is good, but it is not good enough. So GET will not work for us. Why? Because we are expecting input. Make sense or no? If you are not expecting input, you are just say hello, then GET will work. So if I want to pass something, then I need to use post. Okay. So right now, GET is not working for us, so no worry about it. Let's click on action. Click on action. Please follow me. Click on action. Click on create method. Make sure you follow me. Click on actions, create method. And when you click on method, this time we'll do post. And then check mark. Pretty easy. So when you do post, I have post, automatically post is also point to Lambda. It is Ohio, yes or no? And now type Python. So Python fib7. And now save it. So we just do OK. So we link both get and post with the same function. So far so good or not? But we realize that in a get, we cannot pass parameter. So we will change that in a few minutes. So just you will know how navigation and all works. But post will work. Why? Because post I can pass my input, which is event. So now let's click on test. So this time we are testing post test. Now if you scroll down, you have a body here. Yes or no? So in body, we can write a curly bracket. In a body, you write a curly bracket and close automatic curly bracket A column, and let's say pass 10, comma. Remember, you are pro in the JSON. I educated you. The reason I educated, so you are well prepared. Make sure you pass Z as a third parameter, not C. So you can see now I'm preparing a JSON nicely with 3 keys. Because post allows me input, get does not allow. So we will come up with a simple get hello kind of thing. So first of all, remember A is the key, right? Then colon, and then any value you can write. Then comma. Then B is the key. Then colon. Then any value you can pass, right? And then Z is the key, right? And then you pass any value. So you have curly bracket start and end. Make sense? So this will be your simple request to API. So it will go to API. API say, wait a minute, I have no idea. So it will send it to Lambda. Lambda will do magic and it will send to API. And API will send us to back response. So we should get a response back. And our response will be 10 plus 20, 30, 30 plus 30, 60. So now you scroll down and there will be a test button. Are you guys ready? Say yes.
Yes.
And say ta-da! So you can see here, you have transactions, you pass this thing, right? And if you scroll down somewhere, you should have response. So where is the response? Do you see that? Do you see that or no? Success.
Also, you can scroll up, Tushar.
Yeah.
Scroll up.
Mm-hmm.
Response body, it says.
Yeah. Here also. Yep. Here also, right?
Yeah.
And in the log also, we can see we have this thing and we have this. Did it work? Do you agree the web service does not have any knowledge? Web service just pass through to Lambda. Do you guys agree or not? So post is successfully working, but my get is not working. Please try to understand the reason get is not working, but get is expecting parameter. So I'm going to go back a little bit and create a new function so you can be comfortable. This time I need attention. If your program doesn't work, please don't try to fix it because we're going to do 70, 80 clicks. You are not going to catch up. If your program is working with me, you can follow. So don't make mistake. You already made a mistake not to following. Don't repeat second mistake, not paying attention. Making sure or not. Everyone make sure you, because the steps are in sequential. You need to understand. That is the reason I'm doing this exercise, so you can understand. Get is not working because our function expect input. Yes or no? But I will create a new function, but this time rather than Python, I will create in another language called Node.js. So you can understand and appreciate that get can be using different language, post can use different language. Make sense or not? So let's keep this thing here. We are going to keep this thing here, and we will search. We have saved everything, so it should be available. But let's search Lambda. Search Lambda. Make sure you follow the steps correctly. Lambda. Now in Lambda, this time I'm going to create a new function in Ohio only. So we're going to create a new functions. So we are in Ohio, and we're going to create a new functions again. Okay. Now same, I will this time I'm going to give a name Node.js, Node.js Feb 7. One word, no space at all. Node.js Feb 7. Node.js Feb 7. And this is the version I'm going to select. I don't have to worry about it because I'm going to keep it simple, hello type of thing. Very simple, hello type thing. I'm not going to pass input. But if I pass input, then it will expect me to do event, and I don't have to pass event for a get. Now if I scroll down and I create a functions. So I'm going to create a function. So when I create a function, function is created. And when your function is created, now you can see that slowly and steadily, it will create a Node.js function. Python and Node.js, you can see editor online. For Java, you need to use differently. So in Java, normally you create a zip file, put in S3, and then you use it. So you can see here, I have this syntax, this program which you see here right now, it is created using Node.js function. So instead of hello for Lambda, I'll write down hello from top. That's pretty much it. So make sure you change your name, hello from your name, right? So that way I know that it is coming from my function, right? Hello from top. Make sure you change that. Now, at this moment, don't worry about all how you write. No one expects you to know Node.js. You just need to know the process, okay? So once you made a change, the first thing you need to do, file and save it. Remember, file and save it. So file and save it. So we save it. After you save, you're going to do deploy. So do deploy. So you deploy it. Now it is deployed. Now we're going to do quick test. We're going to do quick test. So we're going to say configure event. We're going to do configure event. Configure event. So once we do configure event, I will create an event number 2. So we'll say event 2, and I'm not passing any input. So I'm just going to do empty curly bracket like that. Make sense? So event 2, I'm passing curly bracket empty, means I'm not passing any parameter, right? The reason I'm doing multiple times so you can be comfortable, right? And if you scroll down, you save it. So now event 2 is configured. Now you test it and it will say hello from Tom. And you can see now hello from Tom is showing up. You just click on test and hello from Tom will show up. So just like we did one more time exercise. So this way I have Lambda function ready, does not expect any input, and it's just going to give me hello from Tom. So far so good. Any questions?
How many events can you have?
You can have many more events. But now what we are going to do, we're going to use this function and map with API Gateway with a get. Remember get? In a get, we're going to link this function. Make sense? Why? Because this function does not expect input. Post is working very well. We check it. Post is working very well. But get, we have not make it working. So now let's search here. API. search API, search API, API Gateway, search API Gateway, and then click on it. Then click on it. API Gateway and click on it. So when you click on API Gateway, you will come here. The last time, if you remember, we have created a service, so it will be stored, and our service name is adds SVC. Yes or no? So we're going to click on it.
Same service.
Same service. And we will fix our GAT because post is working, GAT is not working. So right now, you can see post is a green. Nothing is, no problem at all. But in a GAT, so we're going to click on a GAT. We're going to click on a GAT. So when you click on a GAT, so it should allow me to, because it's already there, it is linked here, Python. So we're going to click on here and see if it allows me, otherwise I'll delete it and create one more. So here it's a Python. I need to switch to Node.js, right? Feb 7, right? So click on it and see if it allows me. So it seems like it's jumping to the other side, which is not right. So I'm going to, it better to delete it. Yeah. So let me go back. So I'll go back here because I don't want to go that side because it is not going to work that way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on get, and here I'm going to say delete method. So I highlight this and I'm going to do delete that method, right? So I delete the method. It's going to cry a little bit. We'll do delete, right? So now we only post. So far so good. Now let's click on action. Now click on create method. Make sure you follow me, please. Create method. This time I'm going to write get, and then we'll do check. When you do check, you are this time going to select Node.js Feb 7. So get Lambda Node.js Feb 7. Now save it. Now save it. And then OK. So this way get is done. Now we can test it out. So now we can test get method. So this is selected get. And when you test it out, there is no input parameter needed. Just test and you should see hello from top. Make sense or not? So that is also working. So far so good. Now we tested it and we are good with that. So this is called development testing. You did development testing. Now you need to do deploy. Listen carefully. You need to do deploy. So when you deploy, there are stages are there. Do you want to deploy in a QA stage? Do you want to deploy in a production stage, UAT stage, or production stage? So you can deploy your services multiple times. So normally the way in industry works is you kind of first deploy. After you do development testing, which we did, we can deploy in QA, and then UAT. UAT stands for user acceptance test, where customer will test. And production means all customer will access it. But because we are learning, we can slowly and steadily go to production. Make sense? So now deploy means make it available. Make it available for other customers. So click on action and go to deploy. Deploy API. Make sure you follow me. Deploy API. Remember, the easiest thing is to follow, right? Deploy API. And in deploy API, they are asking stages. Do you have any stages? So I'll say new stage, right? And my stage name is, I'll straight go to production. But normally people go to QA, then UAT, then production. It is asking me what is prod means production. If you want to write some information, we don't need to write. So just write prod and say deploy. So far so good. So when you deploy it, you will get the URL. And congratulations, you got the URL. This URL is known as an endpoint. Speak with me. Endpoint. So most industry, most in an exam interview, people will ask you endpoint. So right now you created endpoint. That endpoint is what you call anybody can access. Because I have a prod, this is the production URL. If I return a QA, it will be QA. It will be UAT also. So you can have endpoint in a different environment, different thing. Now, you right click and copy that endpoint. Copy the link address. Right click and copy the link address. Right click and copy the link address. So far so good. Now when you right click and copy the link address and you go to any browser and paste that link. So you can paste that link and you will see hello from Tom. And if you see that, congratulations. You can see you are getting JSON. And when you call that, by default, it is calling get functions. Do you guys agree or not? And this is coming from my Lambda. So get is calling Lambda. This URL you can give to anywhere in the world. It will work just like this. Any questions so far? But post you cannot work. Yes.
Can you set an expiry on that too or not?
Normally you have to delete it. There is no expiry on a web service. For S3 you can have expiry S3 link. This is the web service. So you expose. If you are not liking, you remove it. Right? So get is working, but I cannot test post because in post I need to pass the JSON. Yes or no? So now I'm hoping you have downloaded Postman. If you have not downloaded Postman, download it and open it. I think I have downloaded Postman where we can see both get and post. We can check it out. So go to Postman if you have it. So if I have Postman here, I hope I have logged in and all. So click on Postman if you have. So see, this is the Postman. And if you click on Postman, it should open. This is very popular in industry. So having in your resume is a plus point. So click on Postman. And when you click on it, it will open. I have an older version. You might have a newer version, but it will work almost same. Postman is no longer supported. Older version of Chrome won't open Windows device after December. You can check if there is a new version available. Huh? Open anyway. I open anyway, right? I'm going to open anyway. Open anyway. It may take a while, and then it will give me a login option, I believe.
Tushar, what is the difference between a put and post?
Put is update, and post means create.
Okay.
If you are creating first time, you will do post, and when you are changing something, you will do put.
And
right?
when you use patch?
Patch you use when you are limited change. Like example, you write a first name, and in first name you made spelling S, and you want to write that simple, very simple.
Or when you just
patch.
want to modify it a little bit.
Simple change.
Yeah.
But if you
Okay.
are modifying bigger change, you do mostly put. I normally don't use patch, to be honest with you.
Okay.
In my entire life, I use lots of web services, but I don't use patch because why should I differentiate small change and big change? Post works for create and put works for update. So we just do put. We don't even create a patch. That's why I don't explain patch. In an exam, they might ask question like that. Patch is designed for 1 line or 2 line small changes. But normally you don't use patch, you use put, and it will work exactly the same way.
Tushar, post, you just use it one time to create. That's it, right?
Yes, post is create.
Only once. Put,
Yes.
get and patch, delete, you can use multiple times.
Correct. Because you can just create one, right? If you are customers, you create only once. Now back to business. Make sure you follow me because there are a few steps and we're almost done. Very close to final line. In a real life, you expose the services. Now, when you expose the services, like example, Google has exposed the service and I want to use it. So if I'm a QA student, I will use Postman. Everyone will use Postman in the industry because they want to check the web service is working or not. So the real way to check the web service is through Postman. So the first thing you will do is you're going to click on a create. Are you guys able to see something like this or completely different? Okay. So do you see anywhere collections or no? What do you see? What do you see? Tell me. Do you say add anywhere? Add a new
Plus sign.
plus sign.
see.
Click on the plus sign and do you say new collection? Anywhere. Do you have new anywhere, like not like new like this?
Sure, I would.
Collection.
New collection, that's all we need. New collections. If you are able to see new collection, you're with me. People are seeing that. Ryan, he's helping you.
Create new one.
Brands.
Somewhere you will see collections. Create a new collection. Right? Now, please follow me. Guys, it's easy to follow. So click on plus and somewhere you will see new collections, somewhere. So click on new collections. Collection is nothing but folder. Okay, collection is nothing but folder. So just write a folder name. So you can say add service. Add service. That's a folder. And create. Create. So that is your folder. So you will see somewhere add service. Say yes. Right? Some folder you see. Yes or no? So whenever you say collection, it creates a folder for you. Are you able to see something like this on the right side or not yet? Yes or no? You need to speak up. No, that's fine. They are those who are able to follow. Yes or no? Something you need to tell me so I can see what you are seeing on the screen. Are you able to see?
Yeah.
Then just speak up. Yes, no, right?
My code
That's it. That's it. That's it. That's all. Are you able to see your get, post, put? That's it. You don't have to count. You don't have to count. At least you are able to see something, right? Now see here how easy it is. Remember, easy it is. Please, 2 more minutes and we are done. First, click on get. Click on get. So click on get first. Now, if you remember, if you have in your Google, sorry, in your in your Lambda, if you remember, there was an endpoint, right? Not Lambda, my mistake. API. There is an endpoint, right? This one. Copy this again. Right click, and copy this link. Right click and copy this link. Right click and copy this link. You need this thing. This is your endpoint. Make sense or no?
Same link.
Yeah, same link. And go to and post it and put it here. So Control V. So you're saying get, and you're using the endpoint which you just created. Make sense or no? Now you can send it and you will get the response here. Look at that. Nice, nice. So you can see here, you're saying, hey, call this web service, call the method get. When you do send, you're getting response. Yes or no? And if you click on JSON like this, you get JSON form. And if you see pretty form, there are different form, you can get the response. You can see preview form, row form. These are the response you get. That is the get. So get is working fine. Yes or no? But now if I do post, select post here. And if I do that, I'll get error, send, and you will get right away error. Do you know why? Why am I getting error for post? You should know now. We explained 3-4 times. Why am I getting error for post? Sorry?
Because there was no event.
No event. Very simple. It's important that you know that post require input, right? So how do we pass input? So please follow me. So first post, URL is still same. Now you're going to click on body. So click on body. Click on the body, right? And in their body, click on JSON. Click on JSON. Click on JSON, application JSON. And here, click on row, right? So you have everything selection, right? Now here you can write parameter like this, just like we were doing, whatever you want, right? Pass the parameter, 3 parameter. Remember events, we talk about events, you know very well how to pass the parameter. So we have curly bracket and we have 3 parameter, A, 5, comma, B, 4, and Z, 10. Pass whatever parameter you want. And then just send and say, ta-da, You will see your answer in the. Look at that. You get their answer. Yes, son. Congratulations. Did you pass the parameter properly? You know how to pass 3 parameters, right? We have done easily. So you can see I passed 3 parameters. It went to the service. Hmm?
You added that.
No, I type. Click on body. Yeah, I click on body, row, select this one, and type it. You have to type. You have to type, right? Remember, we started with the curly bracket and all. So if you can do this entire steps, you able to do. So sometimes people ask, why? What is Postman? So Postman is it's a tool which will help you to verify your REST service, get method, post method, put method, delete method. We just did 2. If I want to do post method, put method, I need to do that. Right now I don't have it. So if I try to do, will it work or will it error out? So check it out. When I do send, it will say this method is not there. Make sense or no? If I try to do patch, it's not going to work. If I do get, it will work. Even though I'm passing parameter, it will work because that is there. Post is there, but other I cannot test it. Make sense? Make sense or no? So what I'm trying to say that, guys, this is entire pipeline I explained. Now, many times what happens, you are doing the process, human nature, right? 1 or 2 steps, you miss it. You watch the recording. Now, before we complete our session, I want to make sure you see the homework. Homework is completely connected with what we cover. So that will give you extra practice. Remember, there is no extra programming skill needed. The only thing you need to do, let me just take a few minutes and show you the homework. So only thing you need to do is follow the video. So if I go to homework, so first I ask you to create one AWS Lambda function using Python. So this is the link. I already gave you the link. So if I click on the link, you can follow the diagram document and it does explain step by step. Follow the steps. Follow the step just like they have mentioned and you create a Lambda functions. So everything it explained. This way it will help you to understand. So they explain Lambda, how to create a Lambda function. You click on that, it will give you some sample, you follow that. So this way you kind of understand how it works. And you will also learn the process because this will be very helpful. What we did is we use like this is our event and this is the handler. You just copy and paste this function. Don't try to write it. Don't try to understand also. They explain when you pass the input, first input, it will go here, second input will go here, and it will say hello, this thing. So follow that and you'll write a one function, right? It may take maybe 10 or 15 minutes writing Lambda function. You're not thinking and writing, you're just cut and paste and following the steps. So that's what first thing you will do. Then you will say, try to create the above function using Node.js. There, learning starts. Because this one is in Python. This one you need to do Node.js. So you have to do a little bit of research in Google and all. And then you have to do. So now you're doing one function here, second function here. Then you're going to do postman and update with web API and create. So you cannot just jump into that. So this is a Lambda function. After Lambda functions, you need to create API. After API, you need to create a get. Remember we talked about get, right? And post. After you do post, you can paste that same thing in a postman too. Make sense? And then write use case from Lambda function. Write use case for API gateway means where can we use this thing? Like Lambda is very powerful where you think you don't need continuous basis. So example, website, I need continuous basis, but certain requests I get, like example, Uber don't get requests on continuous basis. Uber get requests based on event basis. So if I need a trip, I will do Uber, but I'm not going to do 24/7. So Uber doesn't need an application. Uber needs an event. So whenever you send request, it will create an event to Uber Lambda function. And that will receive and it will fire events to the driver. So Uber is all about event based. So when you send me text, if I want to notify the thousands of people, then that is the event. So anytime event is there, Lambda is the right function. Lambda doesn't cost you. Lambda is a serverless, so it's a pretty easy way to use. So you can write some description about that. It will be very helpful for your interview also. Now, right use case for API Gateway, we talk about metering, we talk about authentication, we talk about security, we talk about simplicity. It enables you to have any backend functions. Web API is just the interface, and behind the scene, you can have any kind of programming. You can have Lambda, sorry, Python, or you can have Node.js and all. So Web API allows simplicity, and it allows you programmable concept which you can plug it, which is amazing. Before that, web service was tightly coupled with one programming language. So if I write a web service, get, post, put, everything written in a one programming language. Now, because of API Gateway and Lambda, you can write get in Python, post in Java, put in a Ruby. So you have that type of empowerment. Next, you are going to write, we talk about why Lambda is called serverless, because you don't provision. It is AWS managed. We talk about, now you watch this recording and you will answer what is REST, what is SOAP and all. This will well prepare for the interview as well as your certification exam. That's pretty much I have from my side. Any question, concerns? Anything which you feel like I'm not very clear, explain, I will be able to help.
Yeah, Tushar.
Yes.
So my postman interface looks different.
Yeah, because you're new version. I have very old version.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I have old version. Remember, I started, your screen might be different than my screen, but as long as you have collection, it should work, because mine is like 4 or 5 years old because I downloaded old, but you are new, so it should work as well.
Yeah, I see all the methods, get, put, post,
Yeah,
pass,
it's
copy.
it's just like a
Yeah.
little bit interface difference, but you will still see get and post and put and all.
Okay.
Collection means folder, and you are sending request, and this is the response. It's kind of simple to verify request, sending request, and getting response. It's kind of verified. Make sense?
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
So we don't need to get the API gateway that we create.
For
right?
this kind of thing, it does not charge anything. They have a promise. They only charge based on consumption. So if you are not consuming, it won't charge. Now, many of you are having a problem about charging. Let me take 1 minute and show you how you can debug. So you can go to search here and say Cost Explorer, search Cost Explorer. So if you search Cost Explorer, right? And if you click on Cost Explorer, it gives you graphical representations of the cost utilizations. I use a lot, so they charge me a lot of money, but you should not be charged more than $10. So you can see here, you will see I have charged $48 and all, and you can see I have a lot more information here, how they charge me daily basis, right? So far, so good. Now here, you see here, there is a usage report, which is, click on the report, this report. So if you click on report, you will see usage. So click on the report here, right? So if you click on the report, then you will get the usage, how they charge, they charge on the cost by services, right? So this is what I like, cost by services. And if I click on that cost by services, then it will give me a colorful report where I can see how they are charging me. So you can see the maximum charge I'm right now paying is EC2 and other. Make sense? So they are charging me this, and maximum I'm paying for that. Rest of the services I'm charged less, but I'm paying a lot of money for this EC2 and others.
So just a question, if it's blank, that means they haven't charged.
Yeah, whichever is blank, it's not charged, right?
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Trust me, I pay so much money, right? But each penny works. Each penny works. Trust me. I use a lot of things, and I personally think everything is worth. First of all, you can see how much benefit it gives you. We do a lot of activity. All those videos we prepare this video through AWS. We send email. We do a lot of activity through. So they charge. It's nothing, because I am really getting value. So there is nothing wrong in that. Any other question, concerns before we adjourn?
Tax deductible, Tushar.
Sorry?
Tax is deductible.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Tax deductible. I have to fill up the tax in the. But thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying. Next week, we're going to cover about architecture, SQS, NSS. Now, next week, we're going to cover 15 plus services because these services are a lot more complex. So that's why it took a long time. But next week, when you come, I'll cover like 10 to 15 services in just 3 hours. Right? So small exercise we're going to cover, but still we are doing progress-wise, we're doing really good. Keep doing the homework. Don't try to go for the exam yet. Let me complete my part. Then prepare for 1 week or 2. And I'm pretty positive you will have a good grade. Okay. Good night, everyone. And I'll see you guys next week.